Testosterone is one of those topics that has become almost impossible to discuss online without running into extremes. You've got one group of guys on TikTok and Instagram acting like TRT is a magic potion. They make it sound like the moment you start injecting testosterone, your life transforms overnight. You wake up shredded, confident, motivated, powerful, and basically the main character of some movie. And then the other side, you have the people who say TRT is cheating, that it's only for old men, or that taking testosterone will ruin your natural masculinity or wreck your endocrine system permanently. Both of these narratives are incomplete. Both of them are very emotionally charged, and both of them miss the actual physiology at play. The truth is a lot more nuanced, like it is for a lot of things, and it's a lot more interesting. Because testosterone is not just about muscle. It's not just about sex drive. It's not just about aggression or dominance or any of these stereotypically masculine traits that social media simplifies it down to. Testosterone is involved in energy regulation, neurotransmitter balance, metabolism, bone density, cardiovascular health, mood stability, memory, drive, ambition, and emotional resilience. When testosterone is optimized, a man doesn't just feel stronger, he feels more like himself. A more solid version of himself. A clearer version of himself. A version that has the energy to show up in his life the way that he wants to. And when testosterone is low, the change can feel subtle at first. You don't collapse, you don't wake up and say, something's very wrong. The decline is usually very gradual and pretty quiet. It sneaks up in small shifts, the kind you only notice in hindsight. You wake up a little more tired in the morning than you used to. Work feels just a little bit more overwhelming. Training feels a little heavier. You're still going through the same motions, but the fire behind those motions isn't burning the way that it used to. Maybe your sex drive changes. Maybe your body composition shifts even though you're training the exact same way. Maybe you don't recover like you used to, or you feel less ambitious, less grounded, less engaged in your own life. And this is the experience that tens of thousands of men are describing today. It's not just men are weaker now. It's not because discipline has disappeared. It's because the environment we live in has fundamentally changed and the endocrine system is responding to that environment. So let's talk about that because this matters. Over the past 40 years, average testosterone levels in men have dropped dramatically. We're talking between 20 to 40% depending on the study, and that's not a small shift. That is not something that just happens from natural aging. Aging happens slowly. This drop happened in 1.5 generations. That means something happened in our environments, our lifestyle, or both, something new to human history that the body is reacting to. Most of human evolution, men lived in environments with sunlight, physical labor, consistent movement, community, natural food, deep sleep regulated by natural light cycles, and relatively low exposure to any chemical interference. Today, the average dude spends his day indoors under artificial light, breathing stale, smelly air, sitting for hours, constantly visually stimulated, but physically understimulated, eating refined processed foods, sleeping irregular hours, and surrounded literally all the time by chemicals and environmental compounds that could interfere with hormone signaling. And the stress patterns are different too. Stress used to be acute. You encountered a threat, you dealt with it, and your body returned back to balance. Now stress is usually chronic, subtle, constant, and usually unresolved. The nervous system never gets to downshift. And testosterone is one of the first things that the body downregulates in chronic stress physiology. So let's break down a few of these environmental changes more deeply because this is where men finally go, oh, that's why this is happening to me. First is sleep. Most testosterone is produced during deep sleep, specifically the first half of the night, and especially during the first cycles of slow wave sleep. If your sleep is fragmented, inconsistent, shortened, interrupted by screens, disrupted by weed or alcohol, or compromised by stress, your body simply does not produce the hormone foundation that keeps you feeling energetic, strong, and clear. A lot of guys think they sleep fine because they close their eyes, black out, and wake up. But the quality of sleep, the architecture, is what determines hormonal release. A night of 6 hours of light sleep is not the same as 8 hours of deep sleep. And most guys haven't had truly restorative deep sleep in years. Then there's the nutrition. Testosterone is synthesized from cholesterol. It requires adequate dietary fat, enough protein to support muscle and tissue repair, micronutrients like zinc and magnesium, vitamin D, sodium balance, and consistent caloric intake. A huge number of men are either highly undereating or overeating without realizing it, especially guys who train hard. They're lifting, trying to eat clean, maybe intermittent fasting, maybe they're skipping meals, and their body is reading that as scarcity. When the body senses scarcity, it does not prioritize hormonal optimization. It prioritizes survival efficiency. And testosterone is a luxury hormone. The body only produces it when it feels safe and resourced. Then we have some environmental chemicals, and this one could be massive depending on who you're talking to. Plastics, microplastics, phthalates in fragrance and deodorants and detergents, pesticides in food, PFAs in cookware and water-resistant materials. These are endocrine disruptors. They interfere with testosterone receptor signaling. They can mimic estrogen. They alter how the brain and the testicles communicate. And exposure is constant. It's low dose, but it's all day, every day for decades. This didn't exist 60 years ago. And of course, how much this is significant is still up for debate. I think it's one of those things that it's best to avoid it where you can. You're not gonna avoid it all entirely. It's still everywhere, but do the best you can. Next, we have physical movement. Not exercise, just movement. Our bodies evolved to be physically active throughout the day. Now, most of that movement has been replaced by seated mental work. A man can trade hard for an hour in the gym and still be sedentary the other 15 hours of the day. The body reads that as, we don't need to build or maintain muscle at full capacity. And muscle mass is one of the strongest signals the body uses to determine how much testosterone needs to produce to sustain the organism. And then there's a more subtle cause that almost no one talks about: overtraining and under-recovery in men who actually are already disciplined. This is actually pretty common. If you're training hard, but you're not eating enough, your sleep is short, your stress is high, and you're pushing because that's just what I do, your body eventually has to choose what to sustain. And the body always chooses survival. It downshifts testosterone because testosterone is expensive to produce. This is why you have guys today who lift, who eat clean, who technically look healthy from the outside, and they still feel flat, depleted, unmotivated, sexually disconnected, and physically underpowered. So once symptoms show up, the natural next step is blood work. But here's where things get a little tricky. A lot of doctors only test total testosterone, and total testosterone tells us almost nothing without context. You can have a total testosterone of 800 and feel like garbage. You can have a total testosterone of 450 and feel really good. You can have identical lab values to another man and feel completely different. What actually matters is how much testosterone is available to your tissues, how it's being converted, how it's being signaled, and whether your body is trying to produce it but can't, or whether your body has stopped signaling for production altogether. So when I look at blood work in my clinic, I'm not just looking at whether a number is high or low. I'm looking at the pattern. I'm looking at the relationship between testosterone, free testosterone, SHBG, estradiol, LH, FSH, DHEA, prolactin, fasting insulin, lipid levels, inflammation markers, and even sleep and stress. Because those patterns tell a story. If LH and FSH is low, that tells me the brain isn't signaling strongly. If LH is high and testosterone is still low, that tells me the testicles aren't responding. If SHBG is high, free testosterone availability may be lower than it appears. If SHBG is low, total testosterone might appear lower than the actual usable hormone. If estradiol is extremely low, we may be looking at emotional flatness, joint pain, low libido, or depressed mood. If estradiol is elevated relative to testosterone, we might see fatigue, bloating, or low sexual function. If DHEA is low, adrenal signaling may be suppressed. If prolactin is elevated, it may be shutting down part of the testosterone pathway. If fasting insulin is elevated, metabolic signaling is impaired. This is the level of nuance required to make intelligent hormonal decisions. This is the opposite of, bro, just hop on TRT. And that brings us to the difference between two of the most popular testosterone therapy options, TRT and enclomiphene. TRT is testosterone replacement therapy, meaning you are providing exogenous testosterone to the body. When you do that, the hypothalamus and pituitary reduce their signaling because the body perceives adequate hormone availability. That means natural production decreases, sometimes significantly. TRT can be absolutely life-changing for men who have true hypogonadism, where the testicular machinery simply can't produce enough testosterone. These are men who benefit tremendously from replacement. Their energy comes up, strength increases, mood stabilizes, libido is better, and they get their life back. But for guys who can produce testosterone but simply aren't signaling strongly enough, TRT is not the only option. And that is where enclomiphene comes in. Enclomiphene works by increasing the brain signaling to the testicles, essentially by telling them to produce more testosterone naturally. This maintains natural hormone rhythm. It maintains fertility if you want to have kids soon. It allows the endocrine system to stay intact. And for many younger guys, especially guys in their 20s, early 30s, this is often the more appropriate first step because it supports the system instead of just bypassing it. And the important thing is that this isn't a one-size-fits-all decision. This isn't something you can decide from reading a Reddit thread or an Instagram reel. This isn't something you can determine from a single lab value. This isn't something you can guess depending on how you feel. This is an actual medical process. And done incorrectly, both TRT and enclomiphene can create real problems. If TRT is done without monitoring, hematocrit can rise, which can increase your blood thickness. Estrogen can become imbalanced, and estrogen is crucial for mood stability, sexual function, heart health, and joint integrity. If estrogen gets too low, guys are going to feel anxious, depressed, or emotionally numb. If fertility isn't supported intentionally, sperm production will decrease. And if dosing is too high too quickly, mood instability can appear before the system adapts. Enclomiphene, if dosed too aggressively, can overstimulate LH and FSH, which can lead to symptoms like headaches, mood swings, or even elevated estrogen. It must be monitored just like TRT, and that's why with my clinic, the process is pretty deliberate. We start a full blood work to understand the full hormonal landscape. Not just testosterone, the entire pathway, the lifestyle, the sleep patterns, stress, training volume, nutrition, recovery, even sunlight exposure. We identify whether the issue is signaling, production, metabolic interference, or just lifestyle stress load. We build a personalized protocol, whether that's lifestyle first, enclomiphene, or TRT when indicated. We dose precisely, not with arbitrary starting numbers. We monitor at regular intervals. We adjust based on physiology, not just emotions or guessing. And we support the entire system: sleep, diet, training, nervous system regulation, digestion, and recovery, because hormones amplify your habits. They do not replace them. The goal is not simply to raise testosterone. The goal is to restore the feeling of being fully alive. The version of yourself that wakes up with energy, moves with intention, trains with power, thinks clearly, expresses emotion cleanly, and doesn't feel like life is dragging you behind it. And if as you listen to this, you recognize yourself in anything I described, from low morning energy to flat motivation, slow recovery, the shift in your body composition or libido or mood or sense of agency, the next step is not guessing. The next step is testing. Once you know what's happening inside your body, the path forward becomes clear. Whether it is lifestyle optimization, enclomiphene, TRT, or some combination, there is a way to get back to the version of you that feels strong, grounded, capable, and present. So don't settle for just feeling okay. You're meant to feel powerful in your own life, and let's get you there.